So before we get started, excuse me, the first thing that I want to remind you of or let you know is that everything that I'm going to be going over today, I have already taught you. So I am not reteaching anything. We went over this first semester multiple times. We talked about essay structure, paragraph structure, claims, all of that. So I'm going to walk you through things and try to remind you of stuff, but I'm not teaching necessarily right now. Okay. But I do want to point you to two handouts that I gave you for semester that you want to try and find in your class notebook, and this is the reason you have them out. These should be towards the front, and they would be in somewhere where the Play-Doh unit is. If you were keeping up with your index, one of them is titled Developing Claims. The other is Essay Structure. So the Developing Claims handout looks like this. This is, bless you, going to be very helpful for you. Okay, so the first is the developing claims. And the second is essay structure. The back looks like this. It has these two diagrams. We're going to be revisiting these today. The front looks like this. The essay structure one should be just a couple pages after the developing claims one. Okay. I'm going to mostly be talking about this side of the paper, just so you know. And this is, in a second, this is where I'm going to be starting. Excuse me. So you might want to just have this one out as we get started here. Before we do any of that, I'm going to step aside really quick and talk about your source collection documents. So everybody should have a minimum of 6 sources, 2 of those being from ProQuest. And on this side, on the back side, you have 3 pieces of evidence. Okay, so 3 different quotes from that particular source. Starting with source 1, on the back, I just want you to number each piece of evidence. So each piece of evidence gets its own number. So if you have all 6 sources and all 6 sources have 3 quotes, everybody should end up with how many total numbers? 18. 6 times 3, okay? So 1, 2, 3 on source 1, source 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so just number all of those. If you have fewer, maybe you'll end up with 16, maybe 17. Okay, just make sure each one has its own number. Doesn't matter what sub-question they answer, anything like that. Just each quote gets its own number. All right. Now, I just want to let you know my intention here is to go through everything step by step. Certainly, some of you will finish sooner, and while you're waiting for us to move on, I think it's an appropriate time for you to be on your phones, should you choose to do so. But you should not be on your phone while I am offering instruction and guiding you through everything. I will be less inclined to want to help you, and I definitely do not want to repeat myself because there's a lot of information to cover. So first thing I want you guys to think about is all of the information that you've gathered to try to answer your inquiry question. I made a big deal at the beginning of this about approaching the question and your research objectively. That is all still true, and you should have done that. However, at this point, after having reviewed the information, done the research, learned the information, you should have an idea about where you stand on the issue. Remember, you're writing an argumentative paper, so now you need to take a side. What do you think? What is your opinion? Start thinking about that now, about your topic. What do you think needs to be done? What action would you suggest needs to occur? What need is there? Okay, start thinking about those things. Think also about why this matters. Why should anybody care about the topic or issue that you're presenting? Some of you are talking about, Isaac, I remember yours has to do with presidential candidates' age. Why should I, as an individual, care about the age of our presidential candidates? Why should society care about that thing? What are the potential consequences? Some of you are doing topics on, gosh, I can't even remember. Probably climate change is somebody's. Artificial intelligence. Why do those things matter? What are the consequences if somebody doesn't agree with your argument? Okay, we have to have those ideas. I want you to think about those as I talk about the overall essay structure. So I want to revisit this really quickly to refresh your minds on what we're not going to do and what we're aiming to do. This is important because your claim, which we're going to do after, is going to play a big role in this overall structure. So the first diagram that you have there on the left is this sort of hourglass shape. This traditional 5-paragraph essay structure that you've been taught, beginning with your introduction, where you state your claim, and then you give reasons that support your claim. So a claim in this type of essay might look something like this. Preventative medicine saves money, reduces suffering, and saves lives. Just as a timeout, really quick, preventative medicine. So normally what happens when we get sick, we are reactive. We go get medicine to help us get better. Preventative are all the things that we would do to prevent getting sick. You guys with me on that? Okay. So I have this claim that makes this argument about preventative medicine and gives 3 reasons about the benefits of it. Reason 1, it saves money. This would be my first body paragraph. Second, it reduces suffering. Third, it saves lives. Okay? And then I would end with a restatement of my claim. I think a better diagram to represent this would be a circle. I start here, I give 3 reasons about why that particular claim is true, and then I circle back to that claim. You restate it in your conclusion. This type of structure is problematic for a number of reasons. First, we have 3 separate ideas that are being presented. They all relate to the claim, but they do not relate to each other. Okay? They're just 3 separate pieces of evidence or 3 reasons. This creates a disconnect and a lack of cohesion. One of the areas that you're graded on for this paper is the logical progression of ideas. Do your arguments and do your ideas build from one to the next? Are they connected? This is what we don't want to do, okay? Is this what we're aiming for? No, okay, just make sure we're on the same page. This is traditionally what we've been taught. Instead, what we're going for, if you look at your diagram, there's these sort of 5 just boxes. but I'm going to present this in a different way. And before I do, I want you to think about maybe the book that you're reading, the last movie you watched, or a story that you have read if you're not reading your book right now, okay? And I want you to imagine the plot diagram. Kind of looks like a mountain. You guys know what I'm talking about? So at the beginning of this plot diagram, or at the beginning of the story, you have what we call the exposition, where you're introduced to the characters in the setting. Then you have this inciting incident. It's where this conflict occurs, this particular catalyst that gets the rest of the story in motion. Now think about that in terms of your essay. You have your introduction where you've introduced the issue, and then you've presented your claim, which is this catalyst, this argument, and that's going to propel the rest of your paper forward, and you're going to continue building on that. Ultimately, and this is where the two essays mostly differ, is at the end. Every story, every movie that you've watched, it always has a different ending than the way that it started. The essay structure I just showed you has the same ending as it does the beginning. That's not what we want. We want it to go somewhere. So where is this argument leading? That's what you want to keep in the back of your mind the whole time. So I want to present this in a more horizontal or linear fashion to you. So instead of having a paragraph or essay that goes top to bottom, I want you to think about this as moving forward. So I have my claim here, and I want you to notice the difference. Rather than presenting 3 reasons, it addresses the overall significance. The lack of preventative medicine shows we need a whole new concept of health and wellness in order for society to thrive and progress. This type of claim talks about why somebody should care about this particular issue. In this introduction, I'm going to prepare my reader for what they need to know to understand my argument. And then I'm going to build on that. So my body paragraphs are determined not by 3 individual reasons, but by what I need to prove in my claim. So look at that claim if you would. Don't look at me, look at the claim. What needs to be proved in order for somebody to accept that argument? I have to first prove that the lack of preventative medicine perpetuates, continues sickness, okay? That then means that I have to prove when people are always suffering, it creates distrust in the medical industry. I want you to notice the cohesion, the progression, how they're connected. Multiple people continue to be sick. When they are always suffering, it creates that distrust. Moving forward and building off of that argument, society's understanding of health and wellness needs to be revisited. Should we think about medicine as something that we only take or that we only care about our health once we have become sick, or do we need to think about it in terms of preventing that? Working out, whatever you think that might be, okay? So that's what we're getting at here. Ultimately, to lead to this final idea that society cannot thrive when it is constantly ill. So I want you to think about how we started and how we got to that final point in argument. This is what your paper needs to do, okay? Ultimately, why does it matter that we care about AI, that we care about presidential candidates' age? What does that mean for society in the future? So, why would we want to choose this? This claim is more complex and addresses the overall significance. I've said that multiple times. It's an accumulative argument that builds on ideas and evidence. All I'm doing is I'm restating what's already in your notes. So you should already have this information if you copied it down the first time. And it progresses in a logical fashion, leading to a final point addressing why all of this matters. I cannot reiterate this to you enough. If you don't address the significance in your claim, and you don't address it in your conclusion, you're already in the DF category. These are the basic requirements for you to earn a C on this. How well you do from there determines whether you stay at a C, earn a B, or earn an A. Not meeting the requirements, not having these components, means that you've not met the minimum requirements and you're in that D category. You guys with me so far? Okay, so we will revisit this, but I want you to have a general understanding of this as we start to work on our claims, okay? So now I want you guys to transition to the paper that you picked up or that I passed out as you guys were reading. And we're gonna start on this side here with the big arrow. Okay, now I'm going to use a sample. I'm pretty sure I shared this claim with you, and I have a bunch of sample claims on the slides in Canvas, but I'm going to mostly use this one today for us to look at. So in this top box right here, I want you to identify the specific topic or issue for your paper. So for mine, it's AI is developing really fast. So a super simple statement. We're not going for perfection. We're not going for looking for the best words right now. We just want to, in as few words as possible, identify the specific topic or issue. So go ahead and write that in the first box. And try to be specific. Don't just say AI. Don't just say animals in zoos, teenagers vaping, okay? Try to be, or vaping, right? Maybe just be, try to give it as much specificity as is necessary to understand. In the next box is where I'm going to provide my opinion of this thing. So, what's your opinion, your stance, your argument, or your ideas based on your research? For mine, I have two that I generally want to talk about. People can't keep up. Notice I'm not even writing incomplete sentences. And people can't tell the difference between physical and virtual reality. I did leave a note here to myself that by people, I meant the general public. So anytime I think that something comes to mind or you're looking at your work and you want to leave yourself notes, you should be doing that. So go ahead and identify your argument on this topic. Where do you stand on this issue? What are you trying to argue about it? I have a second example that I'll share with you in case this helps some of you. So, for this specific topic or issue, it's recent legal sports gambling. And the argument about this specific issue is that it causes issues with gambling addiction and fairness in sports. Okay. So, all I need right now is a statement of the specific topic or issue and my argument surrounding that particular issue. That's not helpful. Okay. Moving down to box number 3, we want to consider what our recommendation is, either in the form of an action. Do citizens or whoever the affected audience is, or if it's something relating to the government, does the government need to take action or does somebody need to take action? Is it a warning? Mine regarding AI is more of a warning. Or is there a specific need or necessity, something that needs to happen? So circle whichever one you think applies. It's probably just one of these. In some cases, it might be two, but it shouldn't be all three. Okay. And then state what that action, warning, or need is. So for mine, it's the warning that people won't trust each other. Okay. Now I can develop that later. This doesn't necessarily need to make sense to you. I'll show you the gambling one. This one is both an action and a necessity. We need more stringent regulations. Okay. Any type of need that's required. It could be a need for the action. It could be a need for, let me try and think of an example. Like it could be a need for more understanding of something, a need for more. So somebody in first period was arguing that there was a need to talk more about the negative effects of abortion on women's mental health. So that type of need. Okay, here's the moneymaker. The last box, the significance, the why this matters. I cannot stress to you enough the importance of identifying what this is. Why does this matter? Why should I, reading your paper, or anybody else that comes in contact with your argument, care about this particular issue? Why would I need to adhere to your advice, accept your advice? What are the potential consequences if we don't address this, or if somebody doesn't listen to your arguments? If it helps to think about it that way. So why does it matter? You can talk about it specifically for the affected audience. So in the example that I was just sharing with Sim, for the women that have had abortions, why is that important? You might look at it from a societal perspective. How might this affect the entire society? I would say probably this or these or any recommendations. And you can always change it. It's just to like get us in going in the direction. Well, the argument you obviously can use this as a background, right? So that's going to be this. Or maybe we would argue that it's the trial, not they're not keeping the same. So for my example with AI, the significance why this matters is because this lack of trust, if I'm going to argue that when people can't distinguish between physical and virtual realities, that they won't be able to trust each other, and this will create or lead to more societal division. I'll give you another example from first period. Somebody is doing, they did their research on VR headsets and children, and what he found in a lot of the studies was that 60% of participants, is it 60? 60% of participants, no, the participants lost 60% of their problem solving functions. Okay, so why does that matter? What could be the potential consequences of that? If somebody loses their ability to problem solve, that has individual implications. They're less functioning as an individual. But think about it, in the society that we live in, especially a democratic society, the expectation is that everybody contribute in an economic standpoint, meaning that you work, that people are able to vote, all of these types of things. Those require executive functioning capabilities. You have to be able to problem solve and think critically. So what are the potential problems? Why does this matter? It's a big deal if people can't problem solve and think critically. So hopefully all of those different examples kind of help you. Remember that this is just a draft, okay? We can always go back and change things. I'm a huge fan. After I've read my paper, I want to check to see if everything that I've said actually proves my argument. Sometimes it doesn't. That doesn't mean I need to change my whole paper. Sometimes I just need to rewrite my claim, okay? So this is a working claim that can be edited all the way up until the end. We just need a starting point. Now, some of you have a lot written in your boxes. Some of you, yours looks a little bit more minimal like mine. What we need to do now, let me zoom out here, is we need to combine all 4 of these boxes into one sentence. Now, depending on how much you've written, you might need 2 sentences. But here's the caveat. I want you to aim for 1 sentence. If you need 2 is fine, 3 is not. Okay? So 1 is ideal, 2 is okay, 3 is unacceptable. Okay? So try to combine all of these ideas from these 4 boxes into 1, maybe 2 sentences in this top box up here. Mine says AI's fast development means people can't keep up and can't tell the difference between physical and virtual reality, leading to distrust and societal division. Okay, about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, so if you read mine, it sounds still fairly neutral. So it says AI's fast development means people can't keep up and can't tell the difference between physical and virtual reality, leading to distrust and societal division. There's not really much in there that identifies a particular tone or strong position. So if you look at the next box, it says add specificity and tone to the claim. So you want to identify where you can, on the connotative scale of words, make your ideas land either over here or over here, rather than in the neutral middle. It is an argumentative paper after all, okay? So words like good, bad, positive, negative should not be anywhere in your claim. Those are too neutral and vague, okay? If you're going to say something is bad, what do you mean by that? Is it dangerous? Is it toxic? Those are more connotative words that add more tone and give you a better idea of where I stand on those issues. So here's my revision, and I underlined for you, can't do it this way, what I changed specifically, okay? If AI continues to develop, so notice that I added the if in front of, already letting my reader know that I'm going to tell you what that consequence is at the end. If AI continues to develop at astronomical rates, not just that it's developing fast, but astronomically fast, not allowing humans to keep up. So before I said can't, now I said not allowing. Can't and not allow are two very different things. Not allow connotates a restriction of freedom, a restriction of independence, a sort of oppression, okay? Society may lose its ability to distinguish. So there I'm reiterating that idea. We're losing something between physical and virtual reality, sowing, which just means creating, more division and distrust, okay? Still does not need to be perfect, but I want you to try to add more specificity and tone. What I mean by specificity, so for example, somebody in first period said loans. Loans need to be, well, what type of loans are you talking about? Home loans, student loans, you need to be specific. If the audience, the affected audience is important here, mine's more societal, so people works. But for you, it might need to say teenagers, women, or whoever that is. So where you need to be more specific, you need to be more specific, and where you can be, maybe we'll say add more drama, okay? Add more tone to your claim, go ahead and do that. Underline whatever changes you made. You can add an adjective in front of opportunities, like with necessary, with deserved, with like what kind of opportunities. what type of success? Life success overall. So you can still add a few more things. And which like well, and how you have to say how it will affect society's blank in a dramatic way. You might also want to say like what one of those like what is the overarching dramatic way? Like people's lack of ability to something, right? Something like that. Okay, about another minute here, and then I'm going to move on. Mm-hmm.
Should I add like the consequence? Like should I say
So I would qualify this like the current or traditional American school system approach to education diminishes students. You could even say like diminishes students.
I was gonna say fail, but I just meant like
yeah, I think that's fine because it's adding your opinion and your stance is gonna kind of like thread through it all. So I think that's fine. So right here, right, the failed American school system's approach to education, or the American school system's failed approach to education diminishes students' ability to cultivate personal interest and adapt to the rapidly evolving demands of the modern world.
and like at the end should I add like ruining the potential of success?
Yeah, and potentially even society's overall progress,
Yeah,
right?
that's
In
what I
terms
meant.
of like the other, like in a competitive standpoint, demands of the modern world. Stifling, creating a stagnant society, preventing progress, something like that. Or you could go full alliteration and say preventing progress and stifling success. I don't know, maybe something like that. Okay. A lot of the hard part is over. And remember, you can continue to revise this. Once you guys, today when I check this off, I'm mostly checking for completion and giving you some quick feedback. Once you start typing in your docs is when I'm really going to go in and offer you more constructive, more in-depth feedback. Although very quickly, I do want to say it's not my job to proofread. That's not what I'm doing when I go into your docs. Okay. In order for us to do the next part, which is kind of plan out what our body paragraphs are going to look like, do you guys remember when we took our inquiry questions and created the sub-questions? We're going to do the same thing, but with our claims. So I want you to, if you have a different colored pen, that would be ideal here, or maybe a highlighter, or just something to kind of differentiate between things. And I want you to identify what you need to prove in order for somebody to accept your claim. Like, in order for me to prove this entire thing, what do I have to prove to my audience? So here's what mine would look like. The first thing I have to prove, so I drew a box around this and just put a little 1 here. If AI continues to develop at astronomical rates, not allowing humans to keep up. So I have to prove that AI is developing so quickly that people can't keep up with it. I then have to prove that this could make us lose our ability to tell the difference between physical and virtual reality. I then have to prove that all of this leads to a potential distrust amongst citizens and or citizens in the government, creating even more division, okay? So based on my claim, I'm just kind of bracketing or identifying the things that I need to prove based on my claim. The quantity here is irrelevant. Some of you may end up with 3 like myself. Some of you might end up with 4. That's okay. Let your claim guide you. Okay, don't worry about the number so much. As many as are necessary based on your claim. If your claim is appropriately complex, I would say you would at least have 3. If you only have 2, then your claim needs to be more complex, okay? Meaning that you probably need to add more specificity to it, or add in some more of those ideas from your research. But everybody, I would say on average between 3 and 4. If you've already looked at the back side, you can probably guess what we're going to do next. We need to take those ideas that we just bracketed. Those now become my subclaims. So on the back of this paper, up at the top here, I'm just going to put what I'm trying to prove. So the first thing I have to prove based on my claim, so this is just coming from box number 1 over here, becomes subclaim number 1. AI developing at astronomical rates prevents humans from keeping up. We can't, and I don't need complete sentences right now, but I'm trying to prove that they can't distinguish between physical and virtual reality. I need to prove this creates distrust, leading to societal division. If you have 4, add the 4th one. If not, just put the first 3. Okay. So add in here, maybe do one about athletes and the other one about audience. Because it's about protecting them both, really, right?
Is it okay if I put like a number in here? Because it's like $5,000 was like a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't put the number in there. Let me read it though. This is where I would say like astronomical or copious, unnecessary. And a good one here too is like innocent animals, right? Add that in there. Thank you. You're welcome. I think you actually have four because you have the previous and it's fair. The previous system is so this would actually be one. And then the result would be two. I would combine these two. So you have 1, 2, 3. This you have to combine. And I would add after this, so why is that inventing on phone or maybe something? You could potentially divide it into 4, and then these two would just be smaller paragraphs. It kind of just depends on the evidence you have and the evidence you have. So in those cases, I might just put a note on it and then maybe make this 4, and you can kind of determine that once you start writing. Okay, let me come back and help you with that. All right, guys. I want to talk about the next 2 parts of this, and then I'll come around and help you guys as you need it. The final thing that we're going to do today with me is I'm going to help set up your final paper documents. Okay, so after you have what you need to prove on this side, you're going to identify the counter argument. Everybody has to address this. This is one of the sections in your paper. This could be an overall counter argument, which mine is an example of. Or it might be a counter argument to a specific point that you're making. Okay, it might be a counter to one of these arguments specifically. It doesn't matter, okay? As long as you're addressing potential readers' disagreement and concerns. So here would be mine. Notice that the majority of what I've argued about AI's fast development has been negative. So I imagine that if I was discussing this with somebody, they might say, well, wait a minute. There's been a ton of positive things that AI has contributed to our society. And this quick development has meant more efficiency and more productivity for businesses and consumers. Okay. So that there's both a personal or a professional and a consumer benefit to AI. Okay. My rebuttal to that, so I'm going to write down whatever I think this person might say against me, and I'm going to refute that. I acknowledge that that might be true, but I'm arguing that overall the negatives outweigh the positives. I would want to write that differently in my final paper, but this is my general idea. Okay. And then I noted, especially for average citizens. After you've done that, you're going to take those numbered pieces of evidence and plug them in to each paragraph, wherever you think that they would fit. Okay. I want to say a couple things about this really quick. In terms of requirements for your paper, you have to quote each source at least one time. Okay, so make sure that you have at least one spot in here for each source. Okay, you should also have multiple sources in each paragraph. So paragraph 1 shouldn't just be all the evidence from source 3. Paragraph 2 should not be all the evidence from source 5. There should be a mixture of things in here. But we do need evidence for all of the body paragraphs, for the counter argument, and for the rebuttal. It's much fewer over here, okay? Not nearly as much. So go ahead and work on that. I'm going to come around. Let me know if you need help. Plugging in the evidence where it fits.
Since like more recently, I'm about to do my cover. Okay, like you ready to go? Oh, in 50. I said it is 50. Oh, no one likes it though. Bro, he sent it to my group chat, like, my old group chat. He's like, shut up, what you do, bro? That's like you crazy that he's lost. No, that's what I'm saying, it's like, no one graduated.
Yes, and he says that I have a responsibility to do so. So he's.
You, it's a good person.
I would have that responsibility.
Bro, I don't wanna be, no. But do you listen to the audio? No.
sources over there?
Oh, no.
I can say, I can start with this, because this is only a part of it, right? Like in the programs, is that what you're saying? Is this just no. You don't have anything else that shows up? Yeah, a little bit. This is what also a lot of students, like, things like that, maybe already want to learn other sources. So if you don't have to do that, you don't have to do any of the source questions. So I might make note of that. Like, go ahead and make some sources on there. As long as, okay, so based on what I said, all of this is one source, fine, and like, our country can find an additional one, but as long as the rest of them are like varied, and balanced, and if we use more sources in each, that's okay, but it doesn't have to be. Yes. Yes, I'm gonna show you that. We're gonna set up our papers and set up all the sections, and it will be, after your argument and right before you can do I wouldn't have this final part in here with a specific date, only because it's very limiting. And maybe suggest that it was only an issue in that year. So I might say something like, because it continues to skyrocket, like something like that. So a counter argument on this. What's the main cause of the
My question was about like suppression of expression. They taught us all was like during childhood.
I think that somewhere has to be in here. This idea of self-expression should be somewhere in your claim and part of your subclaims. The only thing that I can really think of is like if you were talking to like a feminist, they might say something like, well, right, yeah.
So I kind of softened that one, but I didn't necessarily say it wasn't.
Right, but it's still an argument
Yeah.
somebody would make.
Because I was
And then you would,
talking to Tyler about it, and I was like, it's kind of like the same concept of gas is expensive and electric is too. So it's kind of like, yeah.
right, so, but it's still an argument that someone would make and then you would refute it.
So I can do that.
Yeah, so like someone say like, well, everybody's mental health has declined or whatever, but that doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to it or that we don't try to mitigate to help it, right? So yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
And you have sources to support that?
Sorry.
Okay, all right. Yeah. All right, guys. I realize many of you are still working on these sections, and that's fine. But I want to just get our papers set up, and then that way you guys can use the rest of the class to do what you need to do. Okay, so let's pause where we're at. I do want to mention really quickly, if after doing all of this and plugging in your evidence, you realize that maybe you don't have as much evidence as you would like for some of these, and that happens pretty often, I would suggest finding a source to support that. So maybe looking for an additional source. This does not mean you have to do another source collection, nor does it mean you have to change your annotated bibliography. All you have to do is add that to your works cited. That's it, okay? That happens pretty often. Students realize maybe they want one more source, so feel free to do that if you need to, okay? All right, keeping all of this out, go ahead and take out your devices and open up your Google Drive. We're gonna get our document set up for our final paper, and then you guys can have the rest of the period to finish your outlines, get those checked off, and if you're ready to start typing. Okay. As you guys are getting those open, everybody should have this document, your works cited that we created and formatted first before making a copy of that for our annotated bibliography. You're going to want to have that open. Okay, before we set up our documents, I want you to look at the screen. I have this 7-page detailed outline uploaded to Canvas for you. So for those of you that work ahead, or for those of you that kind of get lost and forget what you need to do in the sections, everything is outlined for you here. I created bookmarks and links to navigate the document a little bit easier. They will only work if you download and save the document, or just download it. You can't click the links in Canvas. But it has everything here for you, what your introduction should include. We're going to work on that next week. This week we're focused on the body. So if you click these, it'll take you to that section. Everything on claims, along with some more examples for you. Presentation of arguments, following the PEAS structure, if you remember that, point or subclaim, evidence, analysis, synopsis, a detailed explanation for each of those sections, some questions you can ask yourself if you're struggling with the analysis part, some frequently asked questions I get about evidence, citation questions, etc., counter-argument, conclusion, all of that is all here, okay? So just know that that resource exists for you if you need it at any point. Okay, so we're in our Google Drives. We have our works cited open. We need to open up a new doc or create a new doc. So go to New and Google Doc, create that. Okay. Now, many of you did not follow my instructions with the annotated bibliography in certain areas. I want to remind you that it is at the end of your junior year. You have 2.5 semesters left of your high school careers. I am not interested in first draft quality work from you at this point. The final things that you submit to me should be the best work that you have submitted of your entire academic careers. That is the expectation that I have for you. Okay, so very simple things like naming your file how I'm asking you to name it is one of those things because it helps me find it quickly, offer you advice, and be able to give you feedback. So in the top left up here where we have the file name, everybody's going to type in LA3 Research P3 and then your last name. Last name should be sufficient for me, but if you want to include your first, you can if you want. Okay, now a lot of this is going to seem familiar because we did it step by step for the annotated bibliography. We're going to walk right over here to the right side of that same area, and we're going to share it. So you're going to type in my email address, Nikki, nikki.cnusd.k12.ca.us. Okay. Make sure that it says editor over here on the right. This allows me to help with formatting errors should you not be able to figure out how to do it yourself, or sometimes things are really wonky and just need to figure it out. Okay. Then you're going to go ahead and click send. Now, before we do the next part up here where it says tools, actually no, start with file, go down to page setup. Make sure pages is highlighted. If it says page less, that's going to be an issue. Okay, so pages. If pages is highlighted, you're good to go. Click OK. Next, I want you to go to tools, spelling and grammar. Make sure that where it says show spelling suggestions and show grammar suggestions, that those are checked. That's what gives you the red squiggly lines and the blue squiggly lines. That's going to help you do a lot of the basic proofreading that you need to do for your paper. All right, next we need to add that header. Many of you forgot to change the font to Times New Roman for your header, so make sure you change the font, and that's got to be size 12. Everything has to match. Got to get that over to the right-hand side. I'm going to type my last name, space, oops, and then insert page numbers, first or top left option. Okay. So that's what it should look like right now. All right. We good? All right. You can just click anywhere below that. Now remember, we have to format the document. So that's got to be Times New Roman 12. Spacing is double. Times New Roman 12. Double spacing. For our heading, it's going to be first, last name, Mrs. Serenas, English 11. Due date is the 27th, I think. No, 29, 30, 28. Yeah, 27. I might be wrong. I have a feeling it's the 28th, but it's okay. From here, I'm going to hit enter once. Some of you got enter happy, just only ever once, okay? I need to get my alignment to the center, and we're going to type creative and original title. I'll do a lesson on titles, a very short one. We'll come up with those later. We're just going to put in a bunch of placeholders right now to get everything set up. Hit enter. alignment back to the left. Same thing as the annotated bibliography, inquiry, question. And then enter. You can paste, copy and paste that later. Okay, now here's where we're going to add the sections. These are the only things that are bolded in your paper, and you'll get these section titles from that outline that I just showed you, okay? So the first section, go ahead and Control B or go up to your formatting and make it bold, is presentation of the issue. Please take note of the capitalization. Enter presentation of the argument. Counter argument, colon, addressing readers' concerns. In conclusion. Now we want to be careful here. So go back up to presentation of the issue. Put your cursor right there. Hit enter and then tab. Just tab once and then Control B. Take that bold off because you don't want that paragraph. So you're going to start typing here. Okay. So that's what it should look like. I'm just going to do the rest of mine so you guys can get a feel. You can do this also if you want or not. I don't care. Oops. Okay. I do want to tell you that the sample papers that I have from you for last year did not have sections. This is a result of students, I don't want to say complaining, but suggesting that the structure was difficult for them to follow in such a long paper. So you won't see that in the sample papers that I have for you. But everything else, it's all there, okay? All right. So here's what everybody's paper should roughly look like at this point, okay? Now, from here, we got to copy and paste that works cited page over. We have to do that now because that works cited page determines what my in-text citations are going to look like, okay? So do not hit enter or hold it down until you get to the next page. That's going to mess up your formatting. Go up here to insert, break, and choose page break, okay? Once you do that, it will automatically take you to page 2. So insert, break, page break, okay? Good. And that takes you to your next page. This page, sad to say, does not count towards your minimum of 6 pages, okay? It usually ends up being page 7 for most people, 8 or 9, depending on how long your paper is. I'm going to go over here to my works cited. This should be formatted correctly because we did all that together. So as long as it's Times New Roman, size 12, double spaced, hanging indents, everything on my works cited looks good. I'm going to copy that and I'm just going to paste that into my paper. So it should look like that. Okay. You guys would obviously have 6. I only have 3 because for demonstration. Now, if I go find more sources for my paper, this is the only thing I need to update. You don't need to update anything else. Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to say here, the reason that this is important, if I quote from Zoe Heller's article, I know that I need to put Heller in the parentheses. If I quote from that second source, this one right here from Zahida Nassim's, I gotta put Nassim et al., okay, in my citation. So whatever I put in my body of my paper has to match this. Last thing I'm gonna say, for those of you that do not have authors for some of your sources, it just has the title. The title is what goes in the parentheses. So in this case, it would be the vegan diet, not the whole thing, just the first 3 to 4 words. If I was quoting from this one and it did not have the author, I would just put probiotic fortified fruit juices. Okay? All right. That should be enough to get you started. Everybody's going to start here. Presentation of the argument. That's what's due at the end of class on Thursday. A minimum of 2 paragraphs. Generally speaking, this should be 2 pages, 1 page per paragraph. Okay? Considering the amount of evidence that you should include in there. This is on the outline, but you should not be including more than 4 typed lines of evidence. You should be shooting for 3 to 10 words. Beyond that, 2 to 3 lines. Okay? You guys go ahead and get started on this. If you need to finish your outline, you can finish that. If it's done, then go ahead and bring me your outline so I can record that and give you points for that. Mm-hmm. Wait, stay here. Sorry. This is also part here. Here be a little bit more.
Anyway, I guess we're doing